And amen.
Good morning, church. I said, good morning, church. Somebody put your hands together and help me praise our God. Miss Aretha Franklin, in a class all by herself, has touched the world, each of us in our own way. Amazing individual, classy beyond comparison, and yet an earthiness about her that is undeniable. Ubiquitous in her gifting, showing up everywhere, from the palaces in England, singing for the Queen, to popping up in the back seat of a car in the middle of a commercial. Aretha was everywhere. She was classy enough to sing on the most prominent stages in the world, but she was homegirl enough to make potato salad and fry some chicken in a class all by herself. In 1989, the first time my wife and I had gone to the Grammys, we had the privilege of going at the right place at the right time. Luciano Pavarotti was supposed to perform that night. He got ill and could not perform. And guess who took his place? Miss Aretha Franklin, with class and dignity, took the mic and began to sing in the place of Pavarotti until we forgot he was on the program at all. She sung the Nessun Dorma, which means none shall sleep, and she did it with finesse and power and clarity. And even though it appears that she is laying in a box, the song is true. None shall sleep. She is not here. She has risen. I stand on behalf of the Potter's House and my lovely wife that has joined me to publicly thank her for her service. She ministered for us at MegaFest. A friendship evolved every time I got a chance to go where she was. I was there, had the privilege of hanging out in the back, having fun, laughing, talking with her. She shall be missed. I was asked to read the Old Testament text. Many people do not realize that the Bible at its core is a love story, and that walking with God at its core is a relationship. It is a relationship that starts out where we come to Him, and if we are prayerful and if we are careful, when things get tough and difficult, as it did for Aretha, the God that we came to will also come for us. Aretha, the PK, the preacher's kid, came to Jesus, and when she got in trouble, He came to her. Their relationship was a love story. Song of Solomon 2:1. I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valleys. As the lily among thorns, so is my love among the daughters. As the apple tree among the trees of the wood, so is my beloved among the sons. I sat down under His shadow with great delight, and His fruit was sweet to my taste. He brought me to the banqueting house, and His banner over me was love. Stay with me with flagons, comfort me with apples, for I am sick of love. His left hand is under my head, and His right hand doth embrace me. I charge you, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and by the hinds of the field, that ye start not up, nor wait my love till He be pleased. This is what happened. The voice of my beloved, behold, He cometh, leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a roe or a young hart. Behold, He standeth behind our wall. He looketh forth at the windows, showing Himself through the lattice. night, my beloved spake and said unto me, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. Rise up, my beloved, and come away. God bless you.
Come thou incarnate word, gird with thy mighty sword. Let thy people be blessed. Let thy word have success. Holy Spirit, descend. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, evidently the disciples had sense and could see that the landscape of Jesus' ministry was littered with prayer. And so a question was raised, Lord, teach us to pray. Jesus taught them to pray in this manner. You don't have to pray exactly like this, but this is a great model for prayer. When you pray, Our Father, which art thou in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Let every born-again believer shout amen.
Let the church say amen. King David wrote the 139th Psalm to acknowledge that in every aspect of his life, God was the very substance of everything that he had and everything that he became. And so I believe this psalm speaks from the heart of even Aretha. I shall read the 139th Psalm with selected verses from the Message Bible. Lord, I am an open book to you. Even from a distance, you know what I'm thinking. I'm never out of your sight. You know everything that I'm going to say before I start the first sentence. I look behind me, and you're there. Then up ahead, you're there too, with your reassuring presence coming and going. This is much too wonderful for me. Where shall I go from thy presence to be out of thy sight? If I climb to the sky, you're there. If I go underground, you're there. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. You're already there waiting. At night, I'm immersed in the light. It's a fact. Darkness isn't dark to you. Night and day, darkness and light, they're all the same to you, dear Lord. Oh yes, you shaped me first inside, then out. You formed me in my mother's womb. I thank you, dear Lord. You are astounding and amazing. I am marvelously made, body and soul. Lord, I worship in adoration. What a creation. You know me inside and out. You know every part part of my body. You know exactly how I was made, limb by limb. How I was formed from nothing into something. Like an open book, you watched me grow from conception to birth. All the stages of my life were spread out before you. The days of my life all prepared before I even lived one day. Dear God, whom I worship, let me rise in the morning and live always with you. In Jesus' name.
Hello. Celebrate Aretha. Sing with me.
If you didn't know to take it to Jesus, you know it now.
When you walk across floors that you did not scrub, and you go through doors you didn't open, scrub some floors, open some doors. In a world where there's no desire for heaven and no fear of hell, the one question left is, will you leave the world better than you found it? And certainly we can say that the Queen has left the world better than she found it. I told the bishop, this was my first and last time up, you know your name and you know what you're on to do. Folk know you, don't your name wouldn't be on the program. So there's no need of somebody getting up, calling you, talking about you. Get up, do what you got to do. If you don't, I found out something about the bishop working with him today. He can walk fast than most men run. If you're coming up at the wrong time, he will get up and sit you down. Because he's not just a bishop. He's the apodictic pope. Please come where your name appears on the program.
Good morning. I'm Mike Duggan. I have the honor to be the mayor of Detroit. And for the last 2 weeks, Detroit has been the center of an overwhelming emotional outpouring with the loss of our cherished daughter, Aretha Franklin. And for longtime Detroiters, that emotional connection goes back even before Aretha to her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, one of Detroit and America's great civil rights leaders. Reverend Franklin was chief organizer of the Detroit Walk to Freedom on June 23rd, 1963. 100,000 Detroiters marched down Woodward Avenue, led by Dr. Martin Luther King and Reverend Franklin, walking arm in arm in Detroit's largest civil rights event. And at the end of that march, at Cobo Hall in Detroit, Dr. King delivered his first I Have a Dream speech, 2 months before the historic speech in Washington, D.C. And so as I watched this week, as tens of thousands of people lined up outside the Charles Wright Museum, blocks long lines waiting to pay their final respects to Aretha Franklin, I thought back to those long lines on Woodward behind Reverend C.L. Franklin 55 years ago and thought the Franklin family has had a huge impact on the city of Detroit for more than half a century. We all know that young Aretha got a musical start right here in Detroit at the New Bethel Baptist Church Gospel Choir, was making her first recordings by the time she was 14, and in each of her 17 top 10 hits, each time she soared, it felt like the people of Detroit soared with her because she never lost her connection to our city. And of course, along with the successes she had in her life, she also suffered real tragedy. And when you listened to the raw emotional power of that extraordinary voice, you could feel both great joy and great loss. When Aretha Franklin sang, it felt like the voice of Detroit, didn't it? Which I'm sure is why every place I've gone the past 2 weeks, all I get asked is, what is Detroit going to do to honor Aretha Franklin? And I want to talk about that today. Because as we talk to those close to her and her family, one of the themes that kept coming up was that Ms. Franklin loved the Detroit River that she lived her last months in the riverfront apartments, that she seemed to draw spiritual power from the river itself, and that one of her favorite places in the world is Chene Park. Now, if you don't know the history of Chene Park, it was a project started by Mayor Coleman Young in the 1980s. Because then, right, if you wanted to go to an outdoor concert in the 80s, you had to drive up to Pine Knob, an hour away. It was a beautiful facility, but wasn't accessible to this community. And Mayor Young said, Detroit is the center of music in Michigan. We're going to have our own outdoor concert setting. And so he went and took an abandoned barge dock site on Chene Avenue in the riverfront. And he said, that's where Detroit's going to have outdoor concerts. Now, I went to that first concert season in 1985. It was basically a stage and a bunch of blankets on a hill, right? That's the way it started. But even then, it felt special because it was ours. But over the next 5 years, Mayor Young built an amphitheater that could accommodate 6,000 people and a beautifully landscaped park that was an attraction to the city. And with the leadership of Shaida Mayusi, Chene Park has hosted many of America's great entertainers, Stevie Wonder and Jack White, Earth, Wind and Fire, Diana Ross, Run DMC, B.B. King, Ray Charles, and so many others. But the single largest event ever held was the 30th year anniversary of Chene Park, August 22nd, 2015. And the performer that evening was, of course, Aretha Franklin. And what makes Chene Park truly unique is we've kept to the original mission, that even with all those world-class performers, half of our concerts are either free at low-cost ticket, so it's a place that belongs to all Detroiters. And those concerts are now drawing nearly 100,000 concert goers a year. And anybody that was at last night's event knows it is now one of the finest outdoor music venues in the United States. And so I met with President Brenda Jones and talked to my partners on Detroit City Council. And today it is with their strong and enthusiastic support that I can tell you that on Tuesday I will be sending City Council a proposal to rename Chene Park. Our beautiful waterfront jewel will be Aretha Franklin Park. And when performers from generations to come, from around the world come here, they'll be reminded that they are performing at the home of the Queen of Soul. God bless you.
And the mayor just got reelected.
Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to ask, I am Detroit City Council President Brenda Jones, and I would like to ask my colleagues to please stand. My colleagues of Detroit City Council, we follow the mayor with a resolution requesting the renaming of Chene Park to Aretha Franklin Park. This resolution will be presented and passed on Tuesday, tomorrow, next week, and also will follow is an ordinance, which is law, to ensure that Chene Park will remain Aretha Franklin Park. Aretha was world famous, but she was more than just a singer or a recording artist. Her humanitarian efforts, larger than life heart, and silent generosity will forever be remembered. Whether you met her personally or just heard her distinguished voice on many of her hits, Queen Aretha touched us all, from the boardroom to the plant floor, from the east side to the west side. She united us all under a banner of RESPECT, respect. Although Aretha received many different awards and recognitions, she texted me and indicated the greatest was having a street, Aretha Franklin Way, named for her in the city she loved. And I am humbled to have led that effort to honor Aretha and give her her flowers while she was living. I am also proud to present to the family the highest honor bestowed by the Detroit City Council, a resolution and memorial, and I have one for all of her sons. In the interest of time, I will not read the resolution, but I am pleased to inform you that a copy of this resolution will be placed in the archives of the city of Detroit, and Aretha Franklin's life and her legacy will live on and on in the city of Detroit. And also, there are many things about Aretha that are displayed in this testimonial resolution in memoriam. And it reads about, whereas proud of her professional accomplishments, she was equally content with the joy she received from those she cherished, including family and friends. The mother of 4 sons, Aretha created and nurtured connections with loved ones all around the world, and most certainly left a lasting impression in the hearts and minds of those she knew personally and many that she never met. The Detroit Diva performed her final hometown show on June 10th, 2017, headlining the Detroit Music Weekend Festival at the Music Hall. And whereas we wish to honor Aretha Franklin with the city's most prestigious displays of appreciation, which is the secondary street, officially renaming a portion of Madison Avenue, Aretha Franklin Way, which now occupies the intersection between Withrow and Brush Street. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Detroit City Council joins with family and friends and family in honoring the life and the legacy of Aretha Franklin. She will be greatly missed, and her contributions to the world will live on and on. God bless you. God bless Aretha Franklin and all that she contributed to the world international. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Reverend Joanne Watson. Aretha Franklin was my dear friend. She loved Detroit. She loved her family. She loved her father especially. She loved New Bethel Baptist Church, where she grew up singing and supporting the ministry of Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin. Aretha also loved the civil rights movement. She loved the human rights movement. She loved the women's rights movement. She loved the environmental justice movement. She loved the reparations movement. Whenever I go to a reparations meeting somewhere in the nation, she'd say, "Joanne, tell them to bring me back a check." She asked me to attend the premiere of Selma with her in New York City. What a blessing to be there. And she whispered to me in New York, I brought you here so you could represent my father. She never relied on anyone else to tell her story. She wrote her own script. She handled her own business. She understood how to wield power without raising her voice. She was paid in advance when she performed. She would insist there be no air conditioning if she was to sing. She refused to be extorted or disrespected. She planned and paid for her own Christmas parties. She planned and paid for her own birthday parties. Come on, somebody. With exquisite top-of-the-line entertainment and first-class cuisine. When she first received a diagnosis and underwent a medical procedure December 2nd, 2010, she asked me to host a prayer vigil for her at City Hall. And she personally selected the ministers who would stand in front of the spirit of Detroit. And she wanted Miss Fannie Tyler to tell them they were only to pray and not to talk to the press. My. She was the world's queen, an invaluable musical treasure, a humanitarian, a daddy's girl, filled with amazing grace. But more than anything else, she was a quintessential epitome of the greatness and authenticity of the city of Detroit. She would ride the streets of Detroit, taking note of people who had special needs, quietly dispensing donations. And she also never took her eyes off the Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin sign on Linwood in Philadelphia, or Father's plaque in the Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin Park. I'd get those midnight calls and say, Joanne, you're going to have to put my daddy's sign up again. Whether I was in office or retired, she was in a class by herself. She will forever be our angel queen, Aretha Louise Franklin. Forever. I believe that the federal government would do well to have a postage stamp honoring our queen, Aretha Franklin. Honor Aretha in the same way she always honored us. She's now Queen Mother, as she has been risen to the ancestral realm, ruling, knowing that the Lord is going to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make you master over many. Thank you, God, for her life. Thank you, God, for her song. Thank you, God, for her service. Thank you, God, for her Royal Highness, our Queen, Aretha Franklin.
Well, good afternoon. I want to start by thanking the Franklin family. It's an honor that you would invite me to come speak and to bring my wife, Sue. And on behalf of every citizen of the state of Michigan, our thoughts and prayers are with all of you. Aretha was a special person to the state of Michigan, to all of us in the state. Many of you know how many awards she won, and she deserved every single one of those. But I'm going to mention an honor you may not have ever heard of, but it reflects our feelings for her. And it's got shown in the outpouring and love and support you've seen this week for all these wonderful events. Back in the 80s, under Governor Blanchard, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources actually declared Aretha's voice was a natural resource of the state of Michigan. That's something special, folks. That strikes you right in the heart. The other part of it, though, as a Michigander, I thought I'd share something about what the Queen of Soul really meant to all of us. And the thing is, the Queen of Soul is not a title. It's a feeling. It's an emotion. And it means different things. And I just thought I'd share 3 of those very quickly with you, because we have so many wonderful people to talk and sing. First, if you looked at it, she had a God-given voice, a talent, a musical skill that people only dream of. But she did more than that. She took not just the triumphs of her life, she took the challenges and the tragedies and brought a special humanity to her words, to her voice, to her music that most musicians would only dream to have. And it's something that starts all in our heart and soul. And I'll give you a simple case. In our family, we'll have family outings, we'll have friends over, and all of a sudden, I never know why, there's spontaneous singing. They start singing, and you know what number 1 on the hit list is? Respect. And you know who the leader of the chorus is? My wife, Sue. And it's wonderful. It comes out, everyone gets fired up. And I can tell you when it's done, though. If I'm feeling brave, I will suggest to her that she leave the recordings to Aretha and the performances to Aretha. But it has transformed lives. The second thing is, it's not just about entertaining. It's not just about making us feel better. She used her presence, her voice, her music to make the world a better place. The work she did for civil rights, the work she did for women's rights, that was making a profound difference in our society. And we should be proud, and that's why she's the King of Soul also. Finally, one thing to share with you is, if you think about our lives, we're on this world for a very short time. If we live a good life, and most of us will, we'll have the opportunity to say we made a positive impact on our children, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our community, potentially even the world. And we should be proud of that. But Aretha brought something different. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, brought something bigger. Now stop and think, it's not just going to be us that are going to benefit from what she's given us already, or all the people of Michigan, all the people of the world that are living today. Aretha Franklin is timeless. Her gift will continue giving for not just 5, 10, 50 years. It will be 100, 200, 500 years that the message she's sending in her music, in her spirit, and bringing humanity to these things will make a difference. Those are incredible gifts, and we should be so proud. And I will tell you that the people of Detroit, the people of Michigan, have a very special place in our heart, and we will remember these gifts in so many different ways. So God bless you, Aretha, and to the Franklin family.